Well, it's good to see you guys again.
Yeah. How was Brazil?
It's awesome. So cool. I mean, yeah. The people that we partner with are rock stars. So it's cool. You know, we heard a guy talk at the conference and he said something about, he made a joke about his wife, about beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news, because his wife, I think, helped lead him to Christ. And I was just thinking, like, when we got to the city of the church we were partnering with, it was like, oh man, it was so good. It was beautiful, the feet of those who bring good news. Like, these people are cooking for the gospel, and so it's awesome. God's moving down there.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see. And I had my whole family there, so.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it was cool for them to get to see that too. So, yeah. How about you guys? You've been away too. It wasn't just me.
You've traveled. I haven't.
Yeah, no.
I went to Creek Kids Camp for a day.
Yeah, I guess you were in D.C. though.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, that was back in May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was we were recording.
I know. Yeah,
the Brazil trip was in May too,
That's
bro.
true. Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it has been a bit of a whirlwind. Yeah, we went to D.C. It was fun.
Yeah. But I will say it was like refreshing. This was like one of the few times like getting back into this, reading again. It's like, okay, cool. Like, here's where we are. And I think reading these chapters, it was cool seeing some themes and like repetition of things that have happened before. And so, I don't know, maybe some things are clicking for me finally.
Finally.
Oh, finally.
You've been saying it all along, but I think this section is very cool. I don't know if it was purposeful or it's how it worked out with the numbers, but it's a lot here, like a lot you could just sit in and talk about clearly, but also you have really the whole meta-narrative there.
Yeah.
In these 6 chapters, you see sort of the whole biblical story, but you also see sort of one of the climax moments of the story, and so there's so much to dive into.
Yeah,
it's fun.
I didn't realize that 2 Samuel chapter 7 was so rich in terms of the arc of the story. So anyway, all right, so we basically we're starting back up in 6.
David's king.
David's king, and he's like, dude, we should go get the ark and bring it to the city.
Yep.
Yes.
Jerusalem.
It's been in the same place since 1 Samuel 6.
Since they got it back.
Yeah, since they got it back from the Philistines.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is like, so really, for me, if you think about just these few chapters as a Genesis 1 through 3 story, again, you can think right here. So we have this king, and now he's going to also be a priest.
Yeah.
So we had seen earlier in 1 Samuel that Yahweh said, hey, I said this was going to be the family of the priesthood, but not anymore. I'm going to do something different. And you see in this chapter that David becomes this priest who's also the king, and also he's bringing the Ark of the Covenant with the cherubim, with all of these, Eden, symbolized the presence of God. He's bringing it into the land. So you're seeing all these things come together that take us back to Genesis 1.
Yeah.
It's the priest king who is obedient to Yahweh, who's in the presence of Yahweh in the land with the people. So all these things coming together.
Yeah.
And then you have this not weird, but it's crazy, this like well-intentioned moment where it seems like as you picture it, it's like somebody trips on a rock and it's like, oh, don't drop it. And you reach to like grab for it and it's like, boom.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a weird.
Well, if they make a point to say that it was being brought in by a cart, pulled by oxen, it's not supposed to be brought in by a cart, pulled by oxen. It's supposed to be carried by the Levitical priests. So you go back to I wrote some references down. Exodus 25, Numbers 4, Numbers 7, Deuteronomy 10, Deuteronomy 31, Joshua 3. These are all instructions from the Lord. The ark was built with these rings on it, and so they're supposed to slide poles through it, and the men of the priesthood are supposed to carry it by hand at all times.
So they kind of weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing.
They weren't. And it wasn't a surprise. For us, we're like, whoa. But they knew that's not how they were supposed to transport the Ark of the Covenant. And this is actually how the Philistines transported it, on a cart. So it's like, oh, you're doing what the Philistines did, and you're not doing what Yahweh commanded you to do.
Yeah, see, I missed all that.
And it's serious. It's Yahweh's presence with his people.
Yeah.
So it is tragic, and it seems like, whoa, but it's also wasn't a surprise to them.
Yeah. Did I just miss that where we read that it wasn't a surprise to them?
Or
Or
it
is that
shouldn't be.
an assume?
It shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be a
It
surprise.
shouldn't be
Yeah.
because it said over and over.
Yeah. But it's been a long time. I mean,
It has been a
they've
long
already
time.
forgotten a lot of things. We've had many generations
It's true.
Yeah.
away of like, so not
Yeah.
saying, not trying to excuse it, but
Yeah.
maybe they weren't as informed as we hoped.
David's response to all that was really interesting to me because at first
Yeah.
it says he's angry.
Yeah.
And then in verse 9, it says that he was afraid of the Yahweh that day.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes, you
Yeah.
should be.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
But then you see that whenever the Ark of the Covenant's protected, that then this household is blessed by the presence of God. And so then David's like, okay, let's do this,
Let's go
but
get
we'll
it.
do it the right way.
The right way.
Yeah.
And then you really see him become this king who's also the priest.
Yeah. And then he's leaping and dancing basically in his underwear.
It says a linen ephod. So
Yeah.
that's actually, it's like a white linen gown.
Yeah.
It's what the priest would wear underneath their getup, all their regalia.
Well, at least Michael, how
His
do you say it?
wife.
His
Yeah.
wife. I mean, she made it seem like that's kind of like you're exposing yourself, like you're,
'Cause he's
you shouldn't
dancing.
be wearing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Uncovering himself today before the eyes of his servants, like being in his basically
right, but again,
not
remember
modern-day
she's grown up as the daughter of a king,
contextual. Yeah,
and now she's married to a king.
yeah,
And so she's learned that the king is supposed to look a certain way and act a certain way. And he takes off all of his kingly garments.
yeah.
And is just he's not naked.
No.
He's just
Yeah, I wasn't implying he
Simple
was
before the-
naked.
yeah.
I'm saying like in their cultural
Yeah,
context,
yeah.
the equivalent of he's in his underwear. Basically, he's
Well, he's not in his underwear, but he isn't as a king should be acting.
Okay.
So he's really acting as a priest. He's rejoicing and worshiping and praising, and he has the priestly garments on. So he's not acting what she thinks a king should be acting like.
yeah,
It wasn't anything shameful, except that he's the king.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think it was shameful. I think
Yeah.
it was just more his like it said in the cheat notes. It talked about how that was like what the priests would wear.
Yes. Right.
And so it was
Yeah.
kind of like a stripped down,
Yes.
not all your garments on. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess when I think I take off some of my garments, but I still have some garments on, I'm in my underwear. So that's what I was equating it to.
think more like when you see someone who's always dressed a certain way for their profession or whatever, but then you see them out at HEB and they're in
Yeah.
shorts and a t-shirt and flip-flops and you're like, oh, that's
Yeah.
not normal.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Except for the shorts and t-shirt, like actually mean something.
Right.
That he's a
Yes.
priest, which is important for us too.
Yeah.
But also, just like her story is sort of sad. She saved David out of a window earlier. Whenever her father was trying to kill him, and now she sees him out of a window and mocks him and
Yep.
despises him. It's a sad arc for her.
Yeah, there was some weird parallel I was reading in here when I was looking at it about something about the windows or looking out a palace window, royal women looking out. I don't know.
Yeah, there was some battles before when the mother was looking out, waiting for her
Yeah.
son to be victorious. Yeah.
But I mean, definitely what we see, and I think what I initially took is like there's some like humble, unashamed, like he wasn't thinking about external, like what other people. It was definitely like
Like authentic
Yeah.
worship.
yeah,
And he also, it's a feast, right? All this, he's also blessing his people. And
Yeah,
he's
everybody ate.
it's a feast. So we really should be thinking about, abundance and priest kings and, how Abraham was, how Melchizedek was. And we're going to get a little bit deeper into that with the promises in 7. But it all starts right here.
yeah. It was interesting that the whole feast thing. It said the whole multitude of Israel, both men and women. That they, but like it was like everybody, so it was a very inclusive thing. Like it's like, dude, everybody's eating today.
Yeah.
All the people.
Everybody's getting some. So,
Yeah,
which
so
makes
he-
you think that there were times where that wasn't the case. If they noted that this time it was, but maybe not.
Yeah, I think what we start to see with David as the king and the ark of the Lord being brought into the city, it's that, and then right after this, his victories. He now has power and authority over all of the nations around him. We're seeing David as the king that's been promised, the king that has the Lord's blessing, that has his heart, that functions not just as a king but as a priest to represent the Lord to the people and the people back to the Lord. Like we're meant to see all of this, like Israel's unified.
They're unified, all the promises that we've seen up until now. So the promises that he gave to Abraham for the land. I mean, you'll see in these chapters that it's the same description of the land that he promised Abraham. So we're really at this pinnacle of what what Yahweh promised Israelites and what a leader could and should be if they are obedient to Yahweh's commands and they're a humble servant before him and they're blessing and loving others well. I mean, this is it. It doesn't last that long, but this is it.
Yeah. So then we get to 7, which is a really cool chapter. I think definitely go read that if you haven't. But it mirrors a lot of, all these other covenant language, these promises, but this one feels a little bit different in just how it's worded. I don't know.
Yeah, this is the Davidic covenant. It is one of the primary covenants that Yahweh makes with his people, and it's one that the prophets will continue to look back to and look forward towards, is this promise, this covenant that he makes with David. And it's one that is referenced by Jesus and in the New Testament a lot. So it is really good to read this chapter and then, Psalm 110. But this is really, really important.
Yeah.
It's a marker.
Yes. I think the two things that kind of stood out for me was we see this new, and maybe we've seen it before, but the whole, the Yahweh thing where it's like now we're using a different capital O, lowercase Lord, but all caps God. Mm-hmm. It's like a new...
Yeah.
I'm assuming it means the same thing.
It does. It's still Yahweh.
It's just a different
and
way
really,
to write it.
The ESV and only one or two others do that. Like if you are reading the NIV, it still says Lord there.
Yeah, the all caps Lord.
The all caps Lord. And I actually noticed that recently also in Ezekiel.
Oh.
In Ezekiel, when he's talking about Yahweh, it's all caps G-O-D instead of all caps L-O-R-D in some places. Yeah.
That's just interesting. So that, and then again in verse 19, where it says, you have spoken also of your servant's house for a great while to come, and this is instruction for mankind. And just this promise here, this indication for it's all of mankind, maybe not just Israel, like dripping that there's something greater there that maybe you even see early on.
Yeah, so
I know we've seen it before, but
I think this is a good chapter if you're not in the regular rhythm of not just reading but meditating on the scriptures and examining them and letting them examine your heart. This is a great place to do it because you can ask some really good questions, simple questions like, what does this tell me about Yahweh, about God? And so I mean, I did that thinking, what does this say about God? And David wants to build him a house of cedar, have like God's presence needs to have a palace.
Yeah.
Right? But what is God's response? He's like, no.
I don't need that.
I've been on the road with my people from the beginning.
Yeah.
What I want is to be among them, to be in their midst, to be in the mess. And it's just this humble picture of, or it's a picture of the humility of Yahweh.
Yeah.
And the longer I thought about it, the more I realized it shouldn't be a surprise that when Jesus comes, he comes humbly as a baby in a feeding trough. Like, this is the God of the universe who wants to be among the people. And so, I mean, just think deeply about what does this tell you about Yahweh, about the God that we serve?
And his plans versus our plans too.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen that throughout all of these stories is they have a plan, I'm going to do it myself. And then Yahweh's always like, no, you're not. I'm going to do this thing. And so there's all of this that we miss in English, but there's this wordplay between house and house. David says, I'm going to build Yahweh a house. And Yahweh says, nope, I'm going to build you a house. Mm-hmm. I'm going to build you a house. I don't need a house, but I'm going to build you a house, and it's going to reign forever. And it's a covenant promise, which covenant promise and covenant loyalty is, really important throughout this entire story. But in these chapters especially, this is a covenant promise that is unconditional. So he says, your descendants are going to turn from me, and they're going to receive the curses that come from that, but I will be faithful. So this promise is eternal and true, and I will never turn from it.
Yeah.
It's an unconditional covenant promise.
Yeah, and again, this should tell you something about God. It should tell you a lot about God. But in ancient Near Eastern deity culture, they would build a temple to their god, but it was a high maintenance operation because really the view of the ancient gods were, I'll scratch your back so you scratch mine, right? Like we're going to keep bringing offerings, we're going to keep sacrificing, we're going to keep doing all these things because what we really need something from you. And the Lord just flips that. He's like, I don't need anything from you. I don't need you to build me anything. I don't need any special favor. I do want your heart, but here's what I'm going to do for you is build you a house and a lineage that will not end.
Do you think there's anything like, I don't want to say like significant, but Nate, is this the first time we hear of Nathan? I just know we skip. I mean, you just hear all of a sudden Nathan the prophet, a prophet Nathan. I don't know if he takes on a greater role.
I don't remember if this
here.
is the first time we hear. I mean, we're about to hear more from him.
Yeah.
Next week.
Just and maybe this is the catalyst for some of that as their relationship going forward. But I mean, clearly before we've seen God talk to kings through prophets, Samuel and Saul and not Samuel. Yeah, Samuel and Saul, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, I don't know. It just got me thinking, how often did that happen? Or was that just an establishment after, like, that prophets were speaking to
the kings.
Yeah.
To the judges, to the kings, yeah.
But before that, there wasn't that. Because there were no kings. There were no...
Yeah.
It was just Moses.
Yeah.
I guess the priest, prophet role.
Right. Moses was a little bit all, but not the king, because Yahweh was a king.
Yeah.
And then we had the judges who really were the leaders and also prophets, and now we have this.
But this is
sort
definitely
of differentiation.
establishing this rhythm of these prophets that are speaking to the kings.
And I think we've talked about this on another podcast. Part of that relationship is that really the king's supposed to represent Yahweh to the people, but they're supposed to be under the authority of the prophet because the prophet speaks for God. The prophet speaking on behalf of God. So they should submit to the prophets always.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind as we work through all the Old Testament.
Yeah, this gets me thinking more about, like, again, because it just feels like this, what happens here in 7 seems like a really big deal, and it's a guy that, like, we don't know a lot about yet. It's just, and, again, we haven't read forward enough
but that's his role,
That's his role, yeah.
Yeah.
So...
but David clearly submits to
knows.
that. He knows. He's like, hey, maybe because of his experience with Saul and Saul speaking, like he recognizes that's kind of the structure of how it's supposed to work. And so,
and this is a true prophet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so Matthew 1:1, the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. That's how you know when you get to Jesus that what happened back in 2 Samuel 7 is connected.
Yeah.
That's why the genealogies are there, why they matter so much, because this is it says your descendants, the seed, your house. It's just like Genesis 3 we talked about with Abraham, your descendants. He's the Israelite and he's the son of David because it's this promise. Yeah. That's what we're waiting for.
Okay, let's jump ahead. This chapter 8, this day was just, he basically beat up a lot of people. But it's interesting, he subdued them. He didn't go, kill them. He wasn't, murdering. He
but remember, Genesis
them.
1, right? So, I really, think about Genesis 1 and all of these chapters, right? So he's the priest king. God's presence is with him in God's place now, and he's subduing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all part. The language matters.
Yes.
I didn't think about that. So give context for the people about that. It's about subduing the chaos, right? Or create in Genesis 1.
It's the cultural mandate. So you're the priest king who's going to rule on Yahweh's behalf.
Yep.
And you're going to rule on his behalf. So you're going to bless the people and rule for Yahweh, and that's what he's doing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. The cultural mandate, be fruitful and multiply, subdue the earth.
Subdue the earth, yeah.
And which was at the beginning. And what we see over and over and over again as we've read from that chapter, the first chapter to here, is that cycle is repeated.
Yeah.
And man, the more you familiarize yourself with the scriptures and the more you begin to see that, the more rich this all becomes in the way you realize this has to be not only real, but from the Lord. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way
Yeah.
thousands of years apart, this could be that
They could
connected.
all
Yeah.
come up with
Yeah.
that, with all these different authors. I mean, really, I was talking about that on the way here. It's amazing. It is such, even just reading through these chapters this week, which is just such an apologetic to me for the authenticity and authority of Scripture. Because even how Jesus, which, you mentioned just genealogies, but how he uses this promise to proclaim who he is in Matthew and all the Gospels, in Matthew, 22, I think, if you want to go back and read it. I mean, it's amazing. And you could not do it on accident or purposefully by yourself ever.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
So, 8, I guess, takeaway for me is, and the Lord gave victory to David wherever he went. So this is he's definitely living in it.
Yeah.
God's yeah.
Also, I think verse 15
my
matters.
dude.
So David reigned over all Israel, and David administered justice and equity to all his people. So if you remember back to the Abrahamic covenant that God made with Abraham, it was that he would do righteousness and justice, is that all the world would be blessed or flourish. And some of the language that is connected to that and to this are the same.
Same.
So David reigned over all Israel, and David administered justice and equity to all his people, flourishing.
Yeah. And then we have 9, this kind of,
This covenant loyalty.
yeah, he's doing it. He's like, hey,
Yep.
King Saul, just again, all those times when he could have killed him, he didn't. He was the Lord's
Anointed.
anointed. And so,
Remember, he made a covenant with Jonathan, and Jonathan said, will you keep your covenant and show kindness to me and my descendants, even when Saul's cut off? And David, they entered into a covenant together, which we talked about. And this is him showing his covenant loyalty to his covenant with Jonathan. So
yeah.
it's him even imaging God, right? So I mean, I don't want to, but we have all of this Genesis 1, like David is doing all of it well and correctly. God has shown him covenant loyalty and faithfulness. And so he is doing the same thing as his representative, even to his rivals.
Yeah. Well, but he didn't see it as a rival. I mean, they may have been rivals to him, but
He is. If it's a son of an ex-king,
yeah.
he's a rival.
Certainly people in David's court would have said,
I've seen that as
kill
hey,
Mephibosheth, not
Yeah.
not bring him to your table.
Because otherwise he might take over one day. He has a claim.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones. Didn't we say that last time?
Yeah, but he's not the Lord's anointed, so he's
But David knows
he's
that.
humbly confident that
It's-
it's all good.
Yeah, it's David's humble faithfulness to Yahweh right now that we're seeing.
Okay, so then get to 10. I'm trying to. I don't remember much from.
It's still just defeating his enemies.
Yeah.
The empire is growing and secure.
It's the realization of all the promises that Yahweh gave his people. Like we're seeing the fruition. They think they're seeing the culmination of it. This is it. It's all happening. It's the land promised to Abraham. It's this king. It's Yahweh's presence. It's all here. This is what it looks like. It's really a moment to it's celebration. I mean, throughout the rest of the story, they will look back on this moment as the peak of the kingdom.
The glory days.
This is it.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
But then it quickly turns.
Chapter
south.
11.
And that's the thing. We go from Genesis 1 and you're like, this is it. You're doing it well. You're representing him. You're this priest king who's blessing people, who's being kind to even enemies. You're faithful and you're humble to Yahweh. And then we have this test, and it is very similar language to Genesis 3. It's just, it makes me so sad, right? You should just be heartbroken when you get here.
So it's definitely a see and take moment.
Absolutely.
It is.
Yep. David becomes like this, like all the other characters,
All
all the other
of
characters.
them.
Yeah, all of
Yeah,
them.
everyone.
All of
Who see and
them,
take.
all of them, Genesis 3 and onward. I mean, even so, the word for roof in Hebrew looks very similar to the word garden in Hebrew. Like they look the same, and so there's all these word plays again that we don't necessarily see. But they're supposed to be thinking, oh, you're on this rooftop that's sort of like a garden, and he sees what is good and he takes it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much we get into this, but I mean, it's definitely a sad moment in terms of like the realities of how, I don't know, that's a human condition, but people who seem like, you read the chapters before this and it's, what is it? And the Lord gave victory to David everywhere he went. Well, all of a sudden now he's not getting much victory up on that roof. And so, I don't know. It's just it was an interesting thing to read, just about just thinking about our own brokenness and
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
sin patterns.
Yeah, I mean, it starts in the spring of the year, the time when kings go out to battle. What did David do?
He didn't go out to battle.
He sent
sat at
Joab.
home. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's in a city of women and children and elderly. You know, I don't know how much that matters, but if he was supposed to go to battle or not. But nevertheless, he put himself in a position
Yeah.
to be tempted.
Well, and it's interesting in as I underlined. So in 8, you know, again, it's like and the Lord gave victory to David wherever he went. But then in 10, he starts sending Joab out
Yeah.
instead of going, and there's some success. So maybe he's like, oh, maybe I don't need to go.
Leadership, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna delegate. I'm gonna send out these guys. So. Yeah, I mean, this is a sad thing. I mean, basically, I mean, I don't know, you summarize it. Like,
Yeah.
he sees some lady,
He sees another man's wife.
and it's
and
like,
Who
wants
was
hey,
her.
beautiful, who
call her
looks
up
good
here.
in his sight.
Yep.
And he sends his messengers to go, and they took her.
And
Yeah.
and even when he's on the roof and sees her, he says, "Hey, who is that?" And the person says, "Isn't that Uriah's wife?"
Yeah.
Didn't even name her. Just like, that's Uriah's wife.
It's a wife. It's
Yeah.
not yours. It's forbidden,
Yeah.
right? It's a forbidden woman, and he still goes and takes.
Yep. Goes and takes, and then,
And then
she's
he-
pregnant.
Yeah.
And
And
so
then he
now-
murders, and it says Cain and Abel. It's all of these stories,
Yeah.
like it's seeing and taking. It is, you know, this abuse of women that we see over and over. It's this murder of another man. I mean, it's like all of these patterns of sin that we've seen throughout all these stories that happen right here.
Yeah.
It's kind of a sad place to end.
But
every week.
let's read. I mean, we could read Psalm 110. I don't know if we should, but also Psalm 51.
Well,
Go
let's
ahead.
read Psalm 51 next week.
Okay.
Because it comes after Nathan. You want to do it this?
Yeah. No. I. No. You're right. You're right. We'll wait.
He's
So-
got to be confronted first.
You're right.
Yeah.
We'll read. So, yeah. Next week in your reading, just mentally say, I need to read Psalm 51
Yes.
in addition. But we could read Psalm 2 or Psalm 89 or 110 that go with David's covenant.
Let's read Psalm 110 because Jesus refers to this whenever he's saying, this is who I am. And I'll just say before we even read it, I mean, for me, something that was just sort of overwhelming when I was reading through these chapters this week was, oh man, again, like we know it's coming, right? We know it's coming, but it's just, it happens with Adam and Eve. It happens with everyone, with Noah, with Abraham, with Moses. We're like, oh, no. They did the same thing. And this is even after all of this, David will continue to be the one that they look for to return, one like David. He's still the epitome of the humble servant king. But this is still what happens. And I just found myself longing, I'll cry, for someone who doesn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, where is this story going to change? Like, I want to see Genesis 1 without 3. And so you just see, like, it's also, like I said, an apologetic to Scripture because these are their heroes, and this lasts no time. But when you get to Jesus, he's the only one. You never see the fall. You never see the deceit and the selfishness. And it's incredible. So I'm like longing for it. Let's get there,
And that's what I was saying at the beginning. It was interesting reading this time where it was like you start to almost foreshadow, like, dude, I've read this storyline before. I've read this arc. Like, I know what's about to happen. Mm-hmm. And it's like all this stuff that you think all these things aren't connected. It's the same storyline over and over again. And I think it's just ultimately speaks to it's our same story over and over again, and our need for, like you said, Genesis 1 without 3. That's not what it's going to look like until it's all made. I mean, already not yet. I get it, but.
Well, and it's like every other time we've gone through this, there's always in the middle of it this promise of God's faithful covenant love to his people. Which means for the whole world, like you said. And so even in the middle of it, in the middle of this section, we see this promise to David that your descendants, they're going to turn from me and they're going to sin. And so they're going to receive the justice that comes from that. But I'll be faithful. And so that's why the whole narrative, but it's this climax that we'll keep looking back to and that Jesus will say, it's me. Yeah. It's me. I'm the descendant of David who will reign forever instead of the right hand eternally.
Yeah, it's because none of us are ever going to be faithful enough on our own. It's just not going to happen. And that's clearly what we see throughout this. Nobody's ever good enough on their own. So that's why, thankfully, we have Jesus.
All right, Psalm 110.
Psalm 110.
The Lord says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. The Lord sends forth from Zion your mighty scepter. Rule in the midst of your enemies. Your people will offer themselves freely on the day of your power in holy garments. From the womb of the morning, the dew of your youth will be yours. The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. The Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings on the day of his wrath. He will execute judgment among the nations. Filling them with corpses, he will shatter chiefs over the wide earth. He will drink from the brook by the way, therefore he will lift up his head.
I want to talk through that right quick because I was trying to flip through it. So this is a psalm that he probably wrote. Not probably wrote. He did write this one.
Yeah, it's
a Psalm of David. It's a reference to this Davidic promise.
Okay.
It's a reference to the promise that he made to David.
In 7.
In the chapter we just read, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's referencing this promise to David that David has faith in, that he knows is true, and then it's also a promise that then Jesus will reference later when he comes.
This was the whole Melchizedek thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The order of Melchizedek.
From Genesis, and then it's picked up again in Hebrews, interpreting what Jesus has done and who Jesus was.
Yeah.
So in Matthew 22, just if people want to go read it, when he's confronting the Pharisees. So when they're gathered around him, and and Jesus says, "What do you think about the Christ? Whose son is he?" And they said to him, "The son of David." He says to them, "How is it then that David, in the Spirit, in this psalm, calls him Lord, saying, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies under your feet'? If then David calls him Lord, how is he his son?" And no one was able to answer him a word, nor from that day did anyone dare to ask him any more questions. So he's saying, how is David calling his descendant, that's the promise, his Lord? What does that mean? And they're like, I don't have an answer for that. But Jesus is saying, because
it's me.
It's me, and I'm a descendant, but I'm more than that. Yeah. It's really incredible.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited for next week. Get to learn more about Nathan. I saw the thing. So, all right. Well, thank you guys.
You can subscribe to receive additional resources to help you study the story of Scripture at clearcreekresources.org. We'll see you next week.